What if I told you there are ways to help ensure your product or service not only gets noticed, but will help people to actually fall in love with it? Many companies have been leveraging this information for years, and unless you've just crawled out from underneath a rock, you've probably been swayed by these tactics as well and not even realized it. It's all done with neuromarketing, which sounds a bit more complicated than it really is. Simply put, neuromarketing is a marketing communication tactic that applies neuropsychology to marketing research, studying consumers' insights and cognitive and sensory motor responses to marketing stimuli. There are some pretty simple tricks that you can do right now to help leverage these insights and help make your product or service as addicting as possible. Here are the 5 components you need to do to make that happen. The first is the creation of a trigger. A trigger is either an internal or external cue that prompts a user to take an action. With external triggers, the information for what to do next actually lays within the trigger itself, like a good call to action, an email, an SMS, a phone call, or even an alarm of some sort. With internal triggers, the information for what to do next is formed through an association with a user's memory, such as emotions, peoples, places, routines, and yes, even situations. Typically, we would use an external trigger to get people into our loop, and then, if and when things are done correctly, the positive experience they have helps to form an internal trigger for subsequent visits or uses of the product or service. Number 2. Next up is an action. Once a user identifies with a trigger, the next step is to either ignore it or take action. Now, obviously, we want people to take action, so we need to do something about it. People like validation and avoiding pain points, so they'll often take action to help achieve this. Your product or service should make that action as easy as possible. Simple actions might include things like scrolling through a news feed or even pressing play on a video. People are inherently lazy, so the easier it is to do, the more likely they are to actually take action. Number 3, now for the reward. Users typically anticipate a reward from an action, otherwise, what's the point? Whether it's feeling less bored, social acceptance or validation, or even just receiving new information, rewards are a key element in making your product or service addictive. But you can't just give out a reward and expect things to be perfect. Human brains are just a bit too smart for that, and to be honest, it would make things a little too easy for all of us as well. The variable reward system works better than a constant reward, as people tend to engage in an action when there's a little uncertainty to the outcome of a given situation. If they know they're always going to win, the experience just doesn't create mystery and people lose interest really quickly. Number 4, investment time. Products and services become habit-forming when users find them irreplaceable and addictive. While physical products such as cars, clothing, possessions typically devalue with time, great tech products appreciate in value due to daily use. For example, the more followers you have on Twitter or Instagram, the more valuable you'll find those platforms to be. Likewise, users continue to be drawn in when each action they take loads the next trigger. This is important since by taking one action, you make it inevitable that you're going to use that product again. Think of it this way. When you send out a message on WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger, you're setting yourself up for the next notification, which in this case is an external trigger to open up the app back up and read the response. Same goes for posting something online. We're looking for that engagement and validation from our connections, and we'll check our phones pretty frequently for the updates to see what those responses are. Number 5, content and community increase with use. So you've gotten this far and are super excited about putting these tactics into play, and then you realize your use case may be that people only use the product or service intermittently. Now what do you do? So maybe your service deals with something like property insurance, and people only log in to make a purchase once every year or two. You may think none of this may apply to you, but that couldn't be further from the truth. In this case, think about becoming more of a resource than a service by attaching your product or service to actions that are frequent and habit-forming, such as setting up a blog or forum. When people start to interact, the initial validation as well as the information received would help to provide a variable reward while also building a community. Of course, you're not actually selling a product or service this way, but when the time comes, you can be certain that the people who are active in that community will think of your company first for their needs, and that's exactly what we want. These 5 tips are what I've used in the past to help create addicting products and services. While it may sound daunting at first, it really just boils down to learning what triggers our brain to develop certain habits when exposed to various stimuli. By using these tactics and methods, we can now create experiences that become truly addictive to the user and allow us, as marketers, to gain an upper hand with customer adoption by increasing the perceived value of our products and services. I hope these are as much help to you as they have been to me. Thank you.